What started as a routine traffic stop turned into a life or death nightmare that no one could have predicted. Stay tuned, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't believe what happens next. The night was unusually quiet, the kind of darkness that seemed almost too heavy, as if the city itself was holding its breath, and Marcus Reynolds, a decorated Navy SEAL, was driving his sleek black SUV home after a long day of training exercises that left him exhausted but alert, his mind replaying tactical maneuvers and debriefs, unaware that just a few miles ahead, two patrol officers were scanning the streets for any signs of trouble, their cruiser lights flashing intermittently, a rhythm that seemed ordinary until it suddenly wasn't, when they spotted Marcus's vehicle and decided, on instinct more than evidence, that this could be a vehicle of interest, prompting them to initiate a stop. As Marcus slowed to the side, complying with the flashing lights, he immediately noticed the tension in the officer's body language, a rigidity that triggered his trained instincts, and he sensed something was off, something beyond the routine, the kind of gut feeling honed by years of high-risk missions where split-second decisions determined life or death. And as the first officer approached the driver's window with a flashlight, illuminating Marcus's face in stark contrast, the officer's hand hovered near his firearm, eyes scanning the SUV, words sharp and accusatory. "Step out of the vehicle slowly," which Marcus did, palms visible, heart pounding but composed, but before he could fully comply, a sudden movement, a misinterpretation, a glint of reflection from Marcus's watch, or perhaps the way he shifted his stance, caused the second officer to perceive an imminent threat, pulling their weapon and firing, the sharp cracks of gunfire tearing through the night air, and in that surreal instant, Marcus, trained to react under fire and to neutralize threats with precision, instinctively returned fire, hitting a trajectory that forced the officers to dive for cover, adrenaline surging through his veins as the reality of the situation unfolded in dizzying speed, bullets ricocheting, car doors slamming, and a crowd of startled onlookers scattering in panic, while Marcus sought cover behind the hood of his SUV, calculating the positions, the angles, the potential paths of attack, his mind a blur of tactical assessments and personal fear, but also of moral responsibility, knowing that any wrong move could escalate further into tragedy. And as the standoff stretched on, the initial misunderstanding revealed layers of complexity. The officers had been briefed on a recent armed robbery in the vicinity, a suspect matching Marcus's vague description, and Marcus himself was on edge because he was carrying sensitive documents related to his SEAL unit's covert operations, documents that, if compromised, could jeopardize national security, intensifying the stakes far beyond a simple traffic stop. And then came the twist no one saw coming. A third officer arrived on the scene, a rookie, whose radio communication inadvertently clarified that the suspect was not Marcus, sending shockwaves of confusion, and Marcus, realizing this, had to make a split-second decision: stay in cover and risk more shots or surrender and potentially be mistaken for the aggressor in the chaos that had unfolded, bullets still pinging off metal and asphalt, the night alive with the echo of confusion. And as he emerged slowly with hands raised, the officers shouted conflicting orders, their voices sharp with fear, anger, and relief all tangled together, and Marcus, using his authoritative presence and calm tone honed over years of military command, attempted to de-escalate. Explaining his identity, his credentials, and his purpose in the area, but tension lingered, thick and suffocating, because in moments like these, perception often outweighs fact, and a Navy SEAL with a gun returning fire could be seen as villainous in the blink of an eye. And just as the immediate threat seemed to stabilize, a new variable entered. A shadowed figure in the alley behind, possibly a witness or someone connected to the robbery, moved toward Marcus's SUV with apparent intent to intervene, forcing Marcus to shift tactics, positioning himself between the figure and the officers, issuing commands with precision and calm, every word measured, every movement deliberate, turning what could have been pure chaos into a tense, calculated negotiation, all while the adrenaline continued to flood his system, heightening senses, sharpening reflexes, and forcing rapid problem-solving. And as sirens in the distance indicated reinforcements, Marcus had to decide whether to trust the approaching officers or maintain his defensive posture, knowing that any misjudgment could reignite the firefight. And then the narrative twisted again when forensic drones arrived, dispatched by the precinct, capturing aerial views that instantly proved Marcus had no intent to harm civilians, no involvement in any robbery, and his trajectory of movement during the shooting matched defensive protocols for military-trained personnel, evidence that slowly began to shift the perception of the scene, officers' eyes widening as the data streamed in, confirming what Marcus had been silently signaling all along. He was not the threat but a target of misjudgment, a victim of rapid escalation in a world where split-second misinterpretations can be deadly. And as negotiations continued, the story deepened. The shadowed figure turned out to be a journalist who had witnessed the incident unfold from a rooftop, capturing moments on video that contradicted initial claims of aggression, footage that would later go viral, turning Marcus's ordeal into a national conversation about policing, racial profiling, military service recognition, and the terrifying reality of being misidentified under extreme circumstances. And in the midst of this public scrutiny, Marcus's personal struggle emerged, flashbacks to combat zones where every decision carried lethal consequences, where trust was scarce and vigilance constant, now mirrored in his own community, a place he thought was safe, yet was suddenly as unpredictable and dangerous as the battlefield. And as he reflected on the irony of surviving overseas conflicts only to face life-threatening misjudgment at home, the human element became undeniable. Fear, misunderstanding, instinct, and training colliding violently. And just when Marcus thought he could finally lower his weapon, an unexpected twist. The rookie officer, shaken and remorseful, admitted over the radio that procedural errors had escalated the situation, that commands were miscommunicated, and that Marcus's ability to control the chaos and prevent further casualties had been nothing short of miraculous, shifting the narrative from one of confrontation to one of survival, heroism, and tragic irony. Yet the story didn't end there. Marcus had to navigate the aftermath. Internal affairs investigations, media sensationalism, public opinion swinging wildly between vilification and praise, his own doubts about returning to civilian life, and the broader implications for law enforcement training and engagement protocols. And as he finally left the scene, the city still buzzing, the adrenaline slowly subsiding, Marcus realized that what began as a routine traffic stop had transformed into a defining moment, one that exposed flaws in human judgment, celebrated the resilience of trained professionals, and ultimately left an indelible mark on him and the officers involved. A story of tension, fear, courage, misperception, and redemption, culminating in a dramatic reflection that even in the darkest hours, clarity, composure, and strategic thinking can turn near tragedy into a lesson for the future, and that every action, every instinct, every decision carries consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate moment, leaving viewers, readers, and witnesses alike questioning assumptions, reconsidering biases, and marveling at the delicate balance between life and death, authority and misunderstanding, chaos and control, all under the unblinking gaze of a city that watched, recorded, and ultimately learned from the night when a Navy SEAL faced ordinary citizens armed with fear, and yet returned calm, control, and survival, proving that training, presence of mind, and courage can make the difference between tragedy and triumph. In a story that would be told for years, dissected in articles, analyzed in discussions, and remembered as a testament to both human fallibility and human resilience. And as Marcus finally walked away from his SUV, the city lights reflecting off the pavement, he knew that nothing would ever feel ordinary again, that every shadow, every flashing light, every command issued in haste carried weight, and that the world had witnessed a moment where split-second decisions collided with fate, forever changing perceptions, policies, and the understanding of what it truly means to survive under fire in unexpected places, proving that even in moments of fear and misjudgment, a trained hand, a calm mind, and the courage to act wisely could rewrite the story, a story that began with a simple traffic stop but ended as a profound lesson in vigilance, perception, and the human capacity to rise above chaos. And if you want to follow more shocking, twist-filled stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because you won't want to miss what happens next.